I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Salcho?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Breen?
Here, and it's good to see everybody here, board members, and
Yes,
especially
Mr. Anna.
nice seeing you, Ms. Salchow. Glad you're able to make it. Item number 1D, approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion regarding the minutes, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcho?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Breen?
Yes. Item E, summary of current events. Ms. Samaniego, Superintendent.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, members of the staffing community. Well, we are into our second week of summer school, so our kids are attending summer school. Things are going well. We have we hired teachers and support staff and security, so everything is going smoothly for summer school. That runs through the last week of June. And at the high school, we have a lot of students that enrolled this year for their classes. Normally, the high school is one that has the least amount of summer school enrollment, but this year we had a lot of students that needed to make up some credits, and so we have a big number of kids at the high school. And I'm also happy to say that the 9 ladies that you board approved to be part of the Impact Grant have started their master's classes. They started on June 2nd with a graduation date of February of 2024. And they are on the go and already doing part of their practicum hours in their 5-week courses. So that is a good thing. And that is all I have for today.
Members of the board, report, Mr. Lindemann.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I had an occasion, or I say the opportunity to attend the Dia de los Lucas wrestling match with one of our former students as the headliner, and it was a fabulous event. And I want to commend Mr. Morales for emceeing the event, and he did a wonderful job. And I just want to say that it was city-sponsored, and I was told that there were about 300 people in attendance. So it was very well received. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Do you have any report?
No, just other than Mrs. Cox and myself will be traveling to Flagstaff for leadership training program up there. So we'll be heading out on the 8th. The 8th? You got to remind me. I went one day before the other day and I had to pay for my own room.
Ms. Salchow, do you any report?
No reports.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Reports for the administration, year-to-date budget and balance, and travel reports. Mr. Soto.
Good afternoon, Board President, Board members. I have the report for the month of May. And again, at this point, well, we still have the month of June, obviously, to finish up the fiscal year. So I don't know if you have specific questions. Everything has been encumbered. Again, we're still working on the summer school, paychecks and stuff. But next month, we're going to have a final balance report. Again, I don't know if you have a specific question on the report.
That's your report
Yes.
on a $30 million budget? That's it?
27 million.
Oh, well, counting all the other stuff. Members of the board, do you have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to ask Mr. Soto if we can keep track of all of our outstanding business debts, and so we won't have a couple coming in, in the next year or something. Do you keep track of those?
What kind of business you mean?
Well, the open POs that seem
Oh.
to come in from years back.
Years back.
From years back. Yeah. We're keeping track of those.
Oh, thank you.
Trust me.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, and with, along those lines, we recently, the board approved one, and we will make sure that because we will have a couple schools that will have transition in administration. And those things tend to happen when one principal leaves and another one comes in, and so we are going to make sure that Mr. Soto, stays on top of that.
Yeah.
Could you talk to the board a little bit about, and I know it's really a political thing, but it's going to have a ripple effect if the disaster that they're predicting happens, and that's the ESA students. And they're predicting now that it's 900 million over budget.
Right.
And the thing that I read between the lines there is that if they get into a crisis mode with that, and maybe they'll see it next year, maybe, then what do you hear from your professional organizations and people regarding what that would do to local district budgets?
Well, again, like you said, it's a political thing, and it's been happening a couple of years now. And yeah, the increase of students now claiming those vouchers, I mean, it's increasing dramatically. The only thing we get from our field is the way that they look at it is money that we're not giving the district, so it's just money that we're giving to the families directly, which in fact is true, that the money that they should be giving us for that enrollment is what they're giving families and parents on top of that. Because again, the base level that we get per student is not even $5,000, and they're giving away, $7,000 up to $9,000 to families. So yes, in the end, it's an issue with the state that they're going to have to come up with that kind of money. But again, it's political, and I don't know how that's going to end up. And I don't know if, I'm pretty sure they do know what the repercussions are and what the bad, how badly they're affecting the school districts by doing that. But again, it's just a political thing that I really don't know if that's going to be fixed.
Well, it's political to the extent that the
They wanna make
politicians
it.
are the
Wanna-
ones that enacted it.
Yes.
But it's in effect.
Yes.
And the thing that my biggest concern, and I think the board local board members should be aware of, is when I say ripple effect, if they find out that 900 million plus, and then they suddenly decide that we can't do that anymore, then if they put a moratorium on spending for local districts, then
It's a ripple effect.
it could affect us.
Right.
And it's happening. I mean, it's real. So we just need to be aware of that. And it really bothers me because I looking ahead, I think, that's what eventually is going to happen. You're going to see the legislature go into an emergency session, and they're going to have to change the law, and they're going to tell the Department of Ed, you're going to cut. And so
much.
I hope that, I know you're sensitive to it, right?
Correct.
And somebody might say, well, that's just floating out there. It's not. It's real.
It's real.
Okay, so
If
glad
I
you
may,
made that
if
part
I
of your
may
report.
add, if I may add, part of the report is that we did get notification that the AEL aggregate expenditure limit
Yes.
has been
Approved for one more
and we're not going to have to deal, and wait till,
this coming
let's
year.
say, December, January, March, and see if they're going to approve it or not. So we got notification on that. And then yesterday, or the day before yesterday, on our ESSER dollars, that if they weren't expended by September, or no, in July, right, June? In June,
was June
in
of
30
the year.
days, that we would have to send that money back. And so that's not happening, so we're
We're
keeping
going to
those
keep that
dollars.
money.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
going to
correct.
So-
keep that ESSER money.
So wanted to report on that, too.
Okay, that's great.
just
And members of the board, do you have
I
any
just want to
comments?
ask Cesar, and it looks like this is something that's going to happen, and you're prepared now to take on the challenges that we're going to be faced with that situation?
Well, we don't have to anymore. If you remember, especially for the AEL, the aggregate expenditure, I mean, they approve it already for next school year. So we don't have to worry about, they're going to take $5 million out of our budget because of that. So they approved that for next year. And again, in regards of the vouchers and all that, it reflects in our enrollment. And that's why we have to have different revisions to the budget during the school year because of that fluctuates. Let's just say that a lot of our kids decide to just stay home and get that voucher, then the next month our enrollment is going to drop. So it creates a lot of issues because, as you know, as a district, we prepare for next school year and we hire all of these teachers and IAs and everybody that needs to be working, and then all of a sudden we have a big drop of enrollment, then it creates an issue.
That's what's my concern.
Right. Luckily, we
there.
haven't been in that situation, but yeah, I'm hoping that we can continue that. I can see it as a big, major issue on the big metropolitan areas like Phoenix and Tucson. For us, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal, but again, you never know. So we have to be prepared in case something like that happens.
Do we know approximately, just a ballpark figure, how many students we've lost to vouchers?
Here locally, I don't have, I don't know if the New
I don't
Student
have
Center
that
keeps
data. I
track.
don't, they would because they get this, the information, the
Information.
student records request, but I will get that information and share it with you.
Just-
To know.
Just,
Mhm.
how many? Because when I look at the enrollment, which is the next part, I see that we've dropped, we're like, not quite 100, but close to 100 students less than we were last year. And
Statewide is a big number. They're saying that now the voucher program has way more students than the biggest district in the state, which is Mesa Unified, which is more than 55,000.
Well, I think it's
Students.
92,000 is the
Now,
amount.
right, it keeps growing and growing.
Ms. Salcho, anything else regarding that? Actually, the legalized, and I say, well, it's all legal, but what we've been looking at for the last few years is the charter schools. That's a good example. And that's not to exclude the exchange program that those charter schools have with Mexico, right? So they're taking a considerable amount of money
Right.
as well, because those people coming over and going to school over here illegally, by the way, and not the non-residential, are also being counted
Right.
in that number, because that is a voucher program, and that's the one that those schools that they're enrolled in are benefiting by it. So, anyway, anything else regarding any of that? Just keep it on top of it. Good stewards, good members of the board, we have to be concerned about those things, especially as it's something else he's gonna report on again in a minute. Human Resources Staffing Update, Ms. Cox.
So, good evening. So, as Ms. Salcho reported, last year, we ended with approximately 100 students more. We ended this year with 3,744 students. We have enrolled 255 as of now. We still have 90 students pending for their annual registration. We've tried to do home visits, so we're still trying to get those 90 students to bring in their registration. In terms of hiring teachers, we have pretty much hired all of our teachers. We have 3 vacancies right now. So we have 1 elementary, 1 middle school, and then we have an ESS teacher that we need to hire. So in terms of hiring, we're doing well. So that's all I have for today.
Members of the board, any questions or comments regarding that? Mr. Lindman?
No, I didn't have a question particularly, and it might come up, but how are we doing on the 2 principal vacancies?
So I will be making a recommendation pretty soon, and I will be letting you know first. There may be, an internal transfer, and we also, if that creates vacancies, for example, let's say at the middle school level, if assistant principal moves into the principal position, then the vacancies will be there, and we do have now a pool of applicants through the ladies who are doing their master's program. And I informed you last time that once they start their master's, they are able to apply for an interim principal certificate as they are working on their master's given by ADE. And so if some of them do that, which I at least have 4 to my knowledge right now that have submitted a letter of interest, in case there's any vacancies that come about, but I will be making a decision by end of week.
I bring that up because I see in the Herald that there's advertisements such as Benson, put an advertisement for what they needed, and I don't see us doing that, so I'm just wondering if ours is open,
Okay.
not everybody goes to the website. You know, I wonder if we have an advertising, policy to do all those things too.
It's not a policy, Mr. Lindeman, but they are avenues of advertisement and recruitment. So for example, one of the things that we've had to do with, let's say an example would be the teachers that you all approved for a permanent green card. If you remember, part of those fees were to advertise in the newspaper in the Tucson area. But the Herald, we advertise, I know Denise was part of a recruiting agency, and you advertised in some other areas. that you-
Phoenix, Tucson newspapers, yes.
So the Herald is a good one, and we will, make note of that so that we can advertise our positions there too.
I just happen to
And
see
then
events like
ADE has another website that our positions do get advertised as well.
that. All right, thank you.
Because of all of these updated methods for recruiting, you guys don't visit campuses hardly at all anymore, do you? I mean, it's basically done
Yes,
electronically.
electronically, yes. The days of going to a recruiting fair are really long gone, and
Yeah.
everybody moving towards more innovative and online recruitment fairs.
Anybody to address the board?
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, can I revisit my report?
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I give a shout out to the Douglas High School Wrestling, what was that, wrestling committee or?
Oh, the booster?
Oh, the Booster Club. Yeah, they were providing the concessions at the Dia de las Luchas, and they did a wonderful job. And I was told by city employees that they made over $800. So I wanted to give them a shout out and thank them. And Mr. Smith was part of that.
Okay, thank you for that. And we don't have anybody who wants to address the board? Well, we're talking about recruiting. You got to get people to come to the board meeting. That's,
It's summer.
you don't have to, I'm just joking, right? Consent agenda item 2A, approval of the following consent agenda items, payroll and voucher expense report. Entertain a motion to approve those vouchers 1 through 3. Mr. Linneman?
I move to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes,
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Breen?
Yes, item 3, discussion information only on DHS construction update. This ought to be good. Ms. Samaniego?
And Mr. Brain, before we move on further, just so that I don't forget, on item F, I am removing the third bullet point from that action item, okay? So item F, removing, the third bullet point from that item. So just want to make sure I let you know before we move on.
Hold on a
Okay.
minute. Wait,
On
just,
F?
hold on a minute. It's already been advertised, so we're gonna remove that, members of the board, unless we hear any objection. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so on the DHS construction, just providing an update. Our architect was here last week, and both Marco and Cesar visited the site with them. I was on vacation. And we have a new substantial completion date that we're looking at, and that is end of July. That is, substantial completion terms means that they have 30 days, after that substantial completion to finalize any little things that have to happen, but the things that need to happen are not so little. And so even if the site gets completed by end of July, our school year starts August 3rd? Third? August 3rd. And so, for me, and Mrs. Rodriguez is on vacation right now, but I know we've spoken about the concern of completing in July and the following week school starts. And so, when she gets back, we'll be having a discussion over, is it even going to be possible to move in, and start school? I don't think so. And neither does Mr. Soto. There's even things that our IT department has to do in those classrooms. So we're going to run into that issue. At last board meeting, we briefly had a conversation about what potential impacts the delays will additionally cause. And one of them that we mentioned was the need and the start of the construction class. If you remember, the board approved a construction teacher job description. And so the way that the high school works in their scheduling is they create their master schedule based on the number of classes that they have. And so the question brought before me, if the construction is not completed and we're not able to start that class, would we move forward in bringing that class? And so after talking to the DHS administration, if we don't initiate the start of the school year with that class as a part of the CTE courses offered, then kids that have already selected that, as part of the registration process have to be placed into other classes. Now, because they're credit-based, in high school, we can't say, let's say we're able to move in and finalize everything in October after fall break. CTE or that class can't begin in October because it's based on credits. So if we are going to add that class, that would be a class that would need to start in August with the rest of the classes. And the way that we figured for at least the first 8 weeks, any CTE class does a lot of the basic skills and theory, let's say, of that class. And so that class could potentially be placed in one of the portables. They do have an additional space to begin at least in the school year, because if we don't start in August, then that class is not going to be able to happen at all during the course of this year. It won't even be able to start in January. And so the recommendation from the administration is, let's go ahead and start that class as part of our CT courses, even though the construction site and hands-on wouldn't probably begin, let's say, until October fall break, assuming that that's when we can move into the building. So I wanted to mention that. Mr. Soto, you visited the site last week.
Yeah, there's movement. They're working on the different buildings at the same time. But the one that needs more work is the CTE one, which is the one at the end, where they're still working on, sheetrock and everything. Like Mrs. Samanillo said, there's a lot of movement on furniture is already in there. The cafeteria building is almost completed. There's still little things here and there that need to be finished.
They were
What
waiting for
else?
some inspections from the city
From
to
the city,
happen
right.
this week, next week, so that the buildings could be powered on. And so those are happening. So roughly looking end of July, if we don't have any, more delays. And my recommendation to the board is for us to, again, bring this for discussion in July, and maybe possibly an executive session, so that we can bring, either somebody from A&P and provide us, that last month report, or even have discussions internally whether we need to bring legal counsel and see where we're at in July.
The eventuality of us having some type of a situation is very, very strong. And one of the reasons that I've mentioned it almost all the time, and I don't want to say sarcastically or facetiously, but we accepted that money, and that's a huge amount of money for that project. And we're charged with the oversight. This board's charged with the oversight, not them. We are. And if we were to be lackadaisical and sit back and not have any type of an interaction or conversation or any sensitivity towards the lack of construction or progress up there, we would be remiss as a board. And what would happen would be that if there is, with maybe one of the eventualities of a situation, one of the things that would be very prominent, I think, would be the fact that did the board ever take any action? Did we ever, express any concerns about the contractor or the subcontractors or whatever, and I think that's the reason that we need you on the record sporadically, as we've done it over the duration of the construction, that we've had to be on the record that we're concerned about it, in case that does come up. Now, as far as that construction teacher's concerned, I don't know about the rest of the board members, but I sure hope that you don't hire somebody and you put them in a classroom, and then lo and behold, you don't get in that, and then you've got a situation where you've got a teacher trying to maintain whatever semblance of discipline or entertainment is what it'll end up being. I hope that doesn't happen to you, but we'll leave that up to you, and and your best judgment on whether you do that or not. But if the history and the experience we've got with that construction is going to bear itself out, then I wouldn't count on anything. I really wouldn't. But if you want to put a teacher in there, that's strictly
No,
administrative.
we haven't, I don't think the administration has
Well,
gone down that path yet, but.
I wouldn't want to be the teacher. They're trying to entertain those kids and keep them busy for that period of time, especially when you don't have an established curriculum or any experience with that class. It's all going to be a new beginning, right? And the origins of what you get. So anyway, but again, that's administrative, and you do it if you want.
I've got a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Lindeman.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
One of my questions that came up is the other classrooms, are they going to be ready for students so that people can start scheduling students in those other classrooms?
The other classrooms within the new site, the
Yeah.
new part.
Yeah.
If we accept, because the architect is the one that, I guess, signs off or accepts that we are under what he considers substantial completion time, and everything is according to the standards that the building should be, then, as long as those 30 days go by and everything gets done, we would be able to move in to those classrooms. However, we're looking at July 26th. School starts August the 3rd. So moving, we have new furniture, so it's not a matter of like moving, desk and, all of our equipment, but it is still teachers having to move their items, bookshelves or books or things like that, that would be a little bit tough to happen by August the 3rd. And teachers get back on
July 31st.
July 31st. That's when teachers start working on their 2 days. So if they meet substantial completion, then yes, the classrooms are ready, and if the board is ready to accept, I guess, ownership of the building.
Well, that distresses me greatly, because this was supposed to be done, the history, and it's supposed to be at least ready for this year's students. And we've got a very fine opportunity and a project going on, and we got to get in there as fast as we can. My other question was, did the architect ever say what was the major problem for all of these delays?
Yes, so when they came to the board, and then there was a private meeting, and as we get updates, so we can narrow it down to, I'll say it, 2 areas. So one was delay in supply, and 2, staffing issues. 3?
Yeah,
Any-
weather, but there hasn't been that many.
3 were like some weather conditions last year during like monsoon season.
And snow.
And then some of the cold days, a little bit of snow. But ultimately, the bulk of the problems were delay in supply, in materials. And, it took a
Well, if it
while.
was staffing issues, that's not our problem.
Yeah.
And that's theirs, and they should have been well aware of that, I think. They're the company, they should have been able to do that, keep on top of that, but that's.
Correct.
I wanted to ask,
Jana.
oh, I'm sorry,
No, that's
Jana,
all right.
go ahead, go ahead.
During one of our board meetings, the architect said that he would be coming every week and checking on everything. Has that happened?
He is.
Okay, so they
Every
have showed
Thursday or
due
not
diligence
Friday.
on that. Okay.
Right.
Mr. Ramos.
Yeah, Cesar, I have concerns, what happened at the football field with the drainage. that they did the football field and they didn't do the drainage right. The drainage here at the high school. Isn't there a slope going towards the building there of the gym?
Transportation is actually going, they're addressing those two areas. As you remember, the practice field, the new practice field down there is going to have its own drainage, and it's located on the northwest corner behind the bus barn. That's where it's going to be a big drain. Now, as you remember, the new construction has a different altitude or height to match the others.
Elevated.
To have to be elevated. And yes, but they're addressing that to avoid the gym to,
Like,
to a flood. Yes, they're addressing that.
yeah, but they're not doing I was gonna use
A
the word, I
test?
shouldn't, but are they gonna put in the proper size or the proper amount that is needed to have it drain? Or they're gonna minimize it? My concern is they undersize.
Right, to finish
and it
up
doesn't
sooner or
drain,
whatever.
And we still have a flooded gym.
That's something that the architect is overseeing and making sure that they're doing the right things. And that's why now he's coming every week to make sure that the progress they're making, that they're doing the right thing. So-
And Mr. Ramos, if, I think with anything, we won't find out.
Until it happens.
Till something happens. And normally that's what happens with, any construction. It's like, oh, if the floor, the roof is leaking and they promised that they had done everything to inspections and all that. So, unfortunately, and I'm hoping that, with the fields and the water and the elevation that they did and, doing things by the required standards, that we're not going to have that problem. But again, we won't know until we are faced with it.
Just my concern was just that they were going to try to accommodate enough, whatever it takes for it to be drained and not start overrunning.
Right.
Not handle the water amount.
Have they seeded that little the practice football field?
I
getting late.
think they have, yes, they have
And they were
started. I know
doing
there was,
They're doing something in the next few days too, regarding the
Practice
planting
field,
of
yeah,
sod.
of the
or
sod.
whatever.
Mr. Smith?
I have a couple. You said the architecture is responsible, or the architect is responsible for accepting the substantial
Completion.
completion on there. Once that's done, then who makes up the punch list of the stuff that's still, the work that still needs to be done?
It's between the architect and
And-
the company, that contractor.
The contractor
And the
and the
architect.
And the
architect.
architect, correct.
Okay. And who does the final acceptance? Once they say they've completed everything, who accepts that?
I believe it's the architect that has the last word on, okay, the punch list has been completed and it's ready to.
I'm signing off
I'm
and
signing
then-
off
And
on it.
if, once we move into it, we find that it's not up to the standards that we wanted, who's responsible?
Well,
Good
that will
question.
be,
The architect.
that will be the architect.
The architect? So, do we have, my main concern is, obviously, we're going to be doing crunch time, under the gun, hurting for space, and that somebody's gonna go in there and accept substandard work or equipment just because they wanna get it done and get it turned over. Do we have guarantees? Are we sure that that kind of stuff is not gonna take place? Do we have that kind of confidence in the architect?
I mean,
Yes,
I do.
and
but-
I've had those conversations, and in my leadership team, we've had those discussions, and that was our concern, because with anything that we're trying to complete and rush, I don't want things halfway done, or just, simply just do it the easy way, because we need to complete. So that's a conversation that we've had with Rob. I want good quality work. And that's why we hired an architect, and that's why he's overseeing the project, because, and he assured us that that's his role and that's what he's doing.
Those are good questions, Mr. Smith. And I can tell you, one of my big concerns, and it's been all along, when it was very evident that they weren't going to meet the first deadline, which was in November, that these things happen all the time. And then, you know, you've got the architect, you've got the contractor, you've got the subcontractors. Subcontractors even have problems with the contractor, and it's a mess. I don't want to be catastrophic in my thought to think that the eventuality of what might happen. But the other thing that's important, and I talked to Mr. Soto, and I hope he did it, to call the school facilities board and you did call them, right? To express our concern, because if we sit back, or we had just been very passive in this whole, in the whole exercise, then we could have been actually liable because of the lack of the monitoring that we did, which we have the architect to do. And I know the architect, I met with him twice. Jana met with him once with me. I've been on the phone with him, and I don't want to talk to him anymore because they're in a very precarious position right now. They're having problems right now. And like I said, it's not new to us. It's not new to them. It happens everywhere. And I just don't want the district to be, you know, in a long, drawn-out legal battle with those people. And we don't want to do anything like move in too early or jump the gun on anything, because once we take possession, then the architect's out of it as well. And then we're stuck with it. But you did notify the school facilities
Correct.
board, and you told them that the board was concerned.
Correct.
And it's on record and so on.
Yes.
Any other further discussion regarding that?
And the school facilities did send Mr. Soto and I some information on similar projects that the same thing is happening. And so they, you know, they deal with many school facility board funded projects, and they shared at least 2 different scenarios, one with Tanque Verde and the other one. Somerton. Almost, 8 months, 9 months behind schedule for the same reasons that I mentioned a little while ago. So,
If I could just ask, and tell me if I'm out of line, but when we went into this project and things started to slow down, and we did not meet those initial deadlines, one thing that the architect told us was that there were 3 projects going on, that they were handling 3 projects, and my question would be, have they completed those other 2 projects, that we were one of 3?
From Adelson and Peterson?
and this is AMP
I don't
or
see
the
it.
architect?
Architect.
Okay.
Oh, that he was handling.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but
there was something, because I
Okay.
remember jotting down.
Yeah, we can ask the question. I honestly
we
don't
can
know.
find out.
Well, it's a very serious matter, and all along, we made comments, and of course, they're officially on the record, and we don't want to in any way have anybody think that we were passive and that we didn't give it the adequate oversight that we should have. Of course, what oversight can we do physically? I mean, we can talk about it, but officially, we can do things, and they can make phone calls and make a record of our, it could end up being a horrible mess. And that's why we don't want to move in. And my opinion is you don't want to move in, we don't want to take possession of anything until that project is completely. And I think they wanted to give us a while back.
Partial,
Yeah, partial
Partial
occupation.
ownership.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like move
and-
into the cafeteria, we'll have that building ready, and maybe building, S, and
And that would just make it very complex. It'd make it even
Right.
worse. So, the members of the board, any further discussion on that? The architect needs to know the board's concerned. And,
He
and,
does.
and
He
I think
does.
you know that. Well, anyway, let's go to item 3B. Discussion action on the approval of classified resignations. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, you do have just a revision of the last resignation there. It's just a revised date.
Get a motion on the floor
I
to,
move to approve the classified
by
resignations.
Mr. Lindeman. Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Discussion. Any further clarification? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes. Item C, discussion action on the approval of certified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, all of them, with the exception of the first one, are all teaching positions for the next school year.
Oh, what is the funding for all of that? The 21st century?
Well, you have,
Summer school.
summer school is 21st century, and then you have ESSER and M&O, IDA.
And the rest of them are out of the local?
Most of them are.
Let's get a
Most of
motion
them
on
are
the floor.
I move to approve the certified hires.
By Mr. Lindeman, second.
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Breen?
Yes, item D, discussion action on the approval of classified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, you have the summer school campus security and one bus driver and some IAs for next school year.
Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the classified hires.
Second?
second.
By Ms. Selchow. Is those summer school campus security people, those are your people anyway, right?
Yes,
They're-
yes,
they're-
yes, they're our current employees, yes.
Okay.
They're
And
just-
they're being paid by the hour?
Yes.
Okay. Members of the board?
I just wanted to talk about that campus security. That's not all of our security
No.
officers.
No.
No. These gentlemen are only working at the summer school sites right now. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
just for summer school.
Okay. Do we have anybody that's going to cover the, what do they call it, the summer fitness program?
PPT?
Security, that's the
No,
coaches.
we don't have security for the PPT, the morning summer program, athletics program.
Yeah, we don't have security
No,
for
we've
that?
never had security, no.
No?
Is
All
that a
right.
concern?
It's a concern because in this day and age, you should have everything covered.
Okay.
The administration pretty much has, I know you guys are very, very sensitive about it, as we all are, everybody is. And that's an area where you don't want to scrimp, and you want to make sure that you have people covering everywhere. Mr. Lindeman brings up a good point. Even in the summer school programs, and I know that logistically it might be hard to do some things, but you may want to look into that, but, budget permitting and things like that.
Well, all of these campus security are working at the summer school program. And so they're covering Douglas High School, Ray Bahrain, Sarah Marley, Clausen, Stevenson, at least to have one security at each site. We've never had the request, I will say, from Douglas High School to also hire a security, but that is something that we can definitely talk to Mr. Vidal about. We rely on the staff, right? The teachers and the coaches to do the supervision, but you bring up a good point. So we'll definitely talk about that.
And then the issue with the bus drivers, as long as we're talking about it, why don't you quickly tell us, because I know that's a major problem. How are you doing with bus drivers and the hiring process?
So we have one right now, and I know Mr. Rodriguez has a few lined up for interviews, probably starting next week. So we should bring some qualified candidates, I'm hoping in July, to the July board meeting.
And the increase in the salary helped
Yes.
plenty, right?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes.
Mr. Breen?
Yes,
So,
item
Mr.
E.
Breen,
Yes,
before we
go
move on, if we have any certified hires here that we'd like to
Certainly.
welcome and
Sure, go ahead.
introduce, if you want to come up to the podium and let us know who you are.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Axel Lucero. I'm going to be a new teacher in Paul Huber, and I'm really excited for this opportunity, and I'm really, really, really anxious to be here and to be part of this team.
Thank you, and welcome. Congratulations.
And we're really glad to have, really glad to have you. too.
What are
No,
you
seriously,
teaching?
welcome, and we're glad to have you. Is there a mic on the podium?
No, it's
And-
not on my computer.
They're fixing it.
What are you teaching?
I'm an English teacher right there, down there in Agua Prieta. I
Okay.
teach university level and elementary school level.
Excellent.
Now I teach to first graders, to sixth graders, and basic grammar at university level.
Excellent. Welcome to Douglas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We have one more, two more. We'll let Mr. Loreto.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
See you all. My name is Benjamin Loreto. I am a recent graduate of the University of Arizona from Brett Fox School of Music, and I will be hired as your DHS band teacher for this upcoming year. And I'm an original graduate from Douglas High School, so feels a bit weird to be back, but now in the teacher status, but it feels great to be back home. So.
What about that enthusiasm,
Yes.
Mr. Leonard? What do you
Yes.
Wonderful.
We're very excited to have Mr. Loreto back in Douglas and giving and doing back to high school kids and to work with also middle school kids in the future. And so we're very excited he's back. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Were you a member of the band here when you were in
Yes.
high school?
Yes.
And were you a member of the band at the university?
I was at the Pride of Arizona for 1 year at the University of Arizona. Yes.
What instrument do you play?
Trumpet.
There you go.
Well, it looks like you got the imprimatur by him, so you're okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
And one more.
Hello, hola. Mi
Hello.
nombre es Miriam Snyder. My name is Miriam Snyder. I'm going to be the Spanish teacher. And I'm from California.
Welcome.
Spanish teacher at
DHS.
DHS.
Gracias.
Wait. Why do you rush her? I mean,
I did it.
she wants to talk.
Oh, yeah. Sí, sí.
What is your background? Where did you go to? Where did you get your Spanish background?
Well, I'm Mexican.
Oh no, I know you're native, but I mean, where did you go to school? Obviously, where did you go to school?
In Cal State San Marcos and San Diego.
Very good. And you had a master's degree in Spanish?
I have my BA, and I finished on my credential program too. But I'm working right now in Palomar College, Community College in San Marcos, online.
Teaching
Right
Spanish.
now. I was working for them for almost 22 years.
Very good. Very good. Glad to have you. A good background, good native speaker. That's what these kids need in Douglas. I think you know that, right? They need a native speaker.
And I was working also during the day with the parents who speak Spanish. So we're doing shows and also puppets, singing, games, and it's a lot of fun for almost 21 years old.
Did she fill a vacancy at the high school?
Yes.
Who was the teacher?
Guerra, Perla Guerra.
Perla Guerra.
So we're really glad to have you on board, you know. Mr. Moraine was my Spanish teacher. Truly.
But I don't speak it anymore. I've been gone so long, I forgot it all.
I also speak a little bit French and Spanish.
Good. Welcome.
Gracias.
Welcome.
Very good. We're not gonna, I was gonna ask you a couple of questions about the first chapter of Don Quixote, but that's okay. Go ahead and sit down. What was Quixote's horse's name?
I don't remember the name.
Well, let me help you. Rocinante. Anyway,
Sancho Panza.
I didn't want to put you on the spot. It just kind of be a little humorous, okay? Welcome. We're glad to have you.
We are
Was that all? Do we have any other new hires back there?
classified now. Okay, that's it.
Okay, let's see. So
We're at E.
we're on discussion action on the approval of certified transfer, correct?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And so Michelle Yanis, currently a Stevenson teacher, moving into the ELD coach vacancy position. And so as approved, as recommended.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the
Is
transfer.
there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion?
Do we?
Ms. Selchow.
no, go ahead.
What will she be coaching? Like, will she be ELA? Will she be a
Yeah.
math coach?
ELD.
ELD.
So she is the ELD coach, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Do we have a teacher that replaced her
Yes.
already? Very good.
Any further discussion? Any further
No, and-
explanation?
No, and Michelle Yanez is one of the impact grant recipients, so she's, I think this is a good move up for her and giving her that experience in the curriculum department while she's studying her master's program in administration.
Very good. Have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Baring?
Yes. Item F, discussion action on the approval of classified transfers with the exception of the third one.
Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve with the exception of bullet
Is
3.
there a second?
second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any clarification or any?
And no, these are all employees that we have in, currently in other positions or in the same position, moving from, if it's an ESS IA, moving from 5.5 hours to 6, and so there's a little bit change in pay.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Baring?
Yes. Item G, discussion information only on certified internal transfers. Ms. Samaniego.
This is just for information purposes only, no change in pay. Ana Luisa Martinez, who is currently the ELD coach, the instructional coach, moving to the newly approved K-3 literacy coach position. Diane Lomeli from the ELD coach to the instructional coach. And then Bernadette Gonzalez, a Stevenson teacher, moving to be the CTE early childhood teacher at Douglas High School for the Little Bulldogs Education Rising class.
And has she been successfully replaced at Stevenson? Very good.
Get a motion on the floor.
It's information only.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got it. You're right. Sorry. I'm going crazy like Quixote did. Reading too many Knights of Chivalry. I'm just kidding. All right. Any further discussion regarding that? Any more clarification?
No.
Members of the board, any further discussion, questions? Item H, discussion action on approval of athletic hire. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, you have the background information, so for Francisco Morales being recommended as the assistant football coach.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the athletic hire.
Is there a second?
second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to know quickly, if you know, do we have the full coaching staff so far?
For football?
Yeah.
I will defer that to Mr. Vidal.
Oh.
Members of the board, at the present time, no, we don't. We still need a couple more hires in order to fulfill the whole team.
I was just wondering because, our first game with Bisbee now is going to be a big one with the dedication of our field, and so I want us to be ready.
We will find out.
Mr. Vidal, your search to fill those where are you looking for new coaches? Here locally, or you're going anywhere online?
It's online, Talent Ed, so we're looking whoever comes in. This gentleman comes in from Puerto Rico. His wife works at CVP, and he played semi-pro football, so he's an excellent coach.
You actually have a hard time getting coaches with good backgrounds, don't you? That's happening everywhere, though, I think. To get somebody that actually, like this gentleman, he has a pretty good background. And I think he even played semi-pro ball or something, I think I saw in there. Members of the board, any further questions or discussion regarding that? Anything you want to add?
One of the things that I do want to add, you asked a very important question. So preferably maybe this summer, maybe later on during the year, we will have a discussion regarding increasing maybe pay for coaches and different things that we can do to change up what's happening right now.
We'd be glad to have that, but Angel, what you need to do is you need to discuss it with them first. You get all of the information to them and work out all the details and everything, and then if they feel that it's worthy and they want to bring it to the board, then we'll do it that way. But this board certainly don't want to preempt them and say, certainly, let's discuss it now, you know, and then they're sitting over there cringing. So,
No, our plan is to have a work study session just over, you know, the whole topic of athletics and our programs. And Mr. Bahrain said something very key, the challenges of finding, you know, coaches that are qualified and that have, you know, some background in that field in, you know, our rural community. And so he's done extensive research regarding pay, and he's met with CESA, has, you know, shared a proposal. But we do plan on having a work study session very soon.
anything you want to add while you're up there regarding the athletic program? I mean, we can stretch it a little bit.
If you want to move ahead to item J,
Well, we can't move on
No,
ahead.
no,
but-
no. We'll have you come back up for that, but I'm just talking about
In
anything that pertains to that one item now that you want to add. Okay, thanks, Angel. All right, we'll get to you in a minute. All right, have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Alcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. I, discussion action on the approval of athletic resignations, Ms. Samaniego.
So as presented, you see that the first two are Douglas High School, and the rest of them are middle school sports.
Can I get a motion for?
I move to approve the athletic resignation.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion?
I was just wondering if Andrea Estrada was doing all of those things.
Yes, and those are different seasons and at different times, but, and she ended up with that because of other teachers that were coaching resigned, and she didn't want to leave the kids hanging.
Absolutely.
So,
She's a wonderful person. I know her.
She was pretty active in all those.
No, she is. But now that she's going to do the master's program, she's one of the candidates. So,
Any further discussion? Members of the board, any questions, comments? Anything you want to add regarding any of that?
No.
Members of the administration? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Alcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item J, discussion action on the approval of athletic addendums. Ms. Samaniego.
as presented, this is, again, our peak performance training camp that happens and started, you know, this is retroactive because it did have to start immediately after school ended. And the amounts there that you see are per our extra duty athletic salary schedule. So each one of the coaches gets, you know, a $500 stipend for June and July. And then the athletic trainer, $1,250 for each of those dates.
Let's get a motion on the floor.
I move to approve the athletic addendums.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Selchow. Discussion? Mr. Lindeman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, how many students are served, average?
Okay. And we can have, I told Mr. Vidal that he may have some questions. And of course, this is his first year overseeing athletics. And so what do you have going on right now?
At the present time, this program is running Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Begins at 7:30 to about 8:30, 8:45. There's a little rest, and then they continue to the weightlifting till 11 o'clock. Right now, we're looking at about 105 as of today, this afternoon, with more coming in. Overall, with the other coaches doing different things, we have about 250 kids participating in summer preparation.
Do you have the kids sign in and keep a record?
At the present time, yes.
And do they get to pick which station they want to be at, or is it just all together?
They begin a rotating session, so they go with 4 sessions, different sessions. That's for the PPT program. Then from there, they move on to weightlifting, and they rotate that.
Is there a specific reason why there's only 3 days a week?
first of all, that's what pretty much comes into play. And going back, that is one of the reasons we want to
And-
create a work study.
And it was also due to the exhaustion of, like, the kids going, let's say Monday through Friday. So the coaches felt that it was, after several years of doing the summer PPT, they really felt that it was in the best interest of the kids, because in addition to the PPT, the coaches are also doing their own sports, let's say open field. And so a lot of the same kids go to the morning PPT and then do something in the afternoon for their own sport. So that was the recommendation.
Because I think I remember in past years, it was every day.
It was 4 days,
Thursday.
Monday through Thursday.
Monday-
Monday through Thursday, yes.
Because I know you don't want to lift every day.
Yes.
You got to take a break in those, but that would be one of the stations that you would do something else, stretching or cardio or something like that.
So that example, the morning, and then the second session is basically the weight room.
Okay, thank you.
Approximately how many hours do these coaches put in June and July? Just
Total
ballpark.
hours, I would say it's 3, 9 a week. 30,
Because I know,
that's about 36, about 72 hours a week.
per person? Okay.
because the kids normally come in at 7:30. So in speaking to Mr. Hunter Long, he said as the coaches get there usually about 6:30, 6:45 to start the setup. And so they put in about 45 minutes to an hour before, and then obviously the same, cleanup and putting away any equipment is after the kids leave.
Right. I believe that the former program that met Monday through Thursday was Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Uh-huh.
And it was just a total, it was a different concept from what's going on now. Does that sound right?
I
Well-
would say,
Well, Angel wasn't here when it originally started, and so they are, they're having I believe what Hunter said is that they are more intentional and focused in the type of peak performance or strength techniques that they're doing with the kids. And so it is still allowing the athletes to have that summer workout and be ready for fall sports and spring.
spring and winter sports.
Was that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or what, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Friday. And you said about 70 hours a week per coach? No.
For 2 months.
No, for 2 months.
2 months.
Oh, for the whole thing, okay. Okay.
Actually, Mr. Vidal, this is the first year you've actually
Seen it, yeah.
been in this position that you do that, in all fairness to him.
Oh, yes,
Absolutely.
definitely. I just,
Any further questions?
Go ahead, Mr.
Well,
Lee.
I would just like to, if this is your first year, and congratulations and good luck. But,
Thank you.
but keep some documentation so we can have data to decide or to look at from year to year now.
Yes, and that's
but I'm
what
sure
our,
that'll come up in the study session,
yes,
right?
yes, and that's what I told Mr. Vidal, being that this is his first time. I said he needs to know what peak performance, how it's being facilitated, so that when we meet for a work study session, if this is a program that we want to continue, he's able to provide us some data, some evidence, and his knowledge now that he's seen it firsthand, because he hasn't. He has nothing to compare.
Attendance is being kept on who's
Oh,
attending by each individual coach, so. We have who's there, who's not there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion regarding that, members of the board? Mr. Smith, any questions, comments? Thank you, Angel. We have a motion?
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Breen?
Yes. Item K, discussion action on the approval of volunteer, Ms. Almanego.
This is a student practicum placement for next year at Douglas High School and she's doing her coursework at Pima Community College.
Mr. Lindeman,
Move to approve the volunteer.
is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Berrien?
Yes, item L, discussion action on the approval of donations received for Douglas Unified School District number 27. Ms. Samaniego.
So we have two donations, one for $3,000 from the class of 1972 to, this went strictly for senior scholarships, and then a donation of $158.45 from Reading for Education to Clawson Elementary School.
Mr.
I
Lindeman,
move to approve the donations.
is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Discussion, members of the board, Ms. Salchow.
Do we know, like, who spearheaded the donation from the class of 1972?
Yes, we do. And they contacted me, so it was Virginia Alvarado. And so she and the committee donated that money and then met with the counseling team and decided how they were going to designate the scholarship money.
Thank you.
When you have those student activities money, and they leave, and if they don't expend them before they leave, then they come back, how do you account for that money?
Sometimes what we do is just ask the incoming students and see where they want to designate it, or if there's absolutely nothing we can do about it, it goes to the student council pot, and then they distribute it.
But how long do you keep it before you put it into the student activity account?
Right away. As soon, let's just say school ends, and then we try to get, the students to vote on those things at the beginning of the new school year. And again, if nothing happens, then we allocate those funds to the student council.
Right, but isn't there a time limit for that after so much time, after school's out, that if they don't dedicate those funds or spend them, that they immediately go back into the general, right? The general student
Right, to the
activity.
general student activity. Yeah,
And-
I don't
and then
have the
the-
exact number of days, but yeah, it's like
And
30
then,
days or 60
as long as
days.
we're talking about this and for clarification, a lot of times, those people leave those monies and they independently work, let's say with a high school. And before you know it, they've got a mural painted on a wall over there. And of course, we've talked about this before, that those kinds of things are gonna need prior approval. But when they do something material-wise, like a construction or any type of a project like that, do they always come to you? Because, you can go all over that high school and you'll see things that are really egregious. You'll see something standing up there that says dedicated by the class of 1955, and you don't even know what it is. There's one down at RBMS that's in the courtyard there that was some class grade. They gave it to RBMS, and it's a huge monument with the memorialization is gone off of it. There's nothing on top of it anymore. If there is, you can't see it. But do they, and they should, come before they do any construction or projects like that, they should be approved by the board. You don't bring those to the board, do you?
I don't think we have had anyone recently. I don't remember when was the last time. Since I've been here, I don't. But typically, yeah, they will come, I'm assuming, to the superintendent, but again, I haven't seen any project like that recently.
Okay. Just to make sure, because there's got to be some control.
Yeah.
There's got to be some type of a barometer as to what's acceptable and not, and whatever they want. So, just so that you're aware of that, right? All right. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes,
Mr. Berrien?
Yes. Item M, discussion information only on ESI hires for school year 2023-24. Ms. Samaniego.
This is just for information purposes only. You have continuing as an ESI employee is Mr. Young and Diane Campas. And the two new ESI employees are Richard Acosta and Clint Hill for the next year. And that's just so that you're aware how many ESI employees we have year to year.
When you give them a contract for the following year, they go through the whole thing, they get evaluated, so unless they're notified, but they're viewed differently. They're not employees of the district.
No, they are ESI employees.
So shouldn't the board approve the hire every year for them? They're not ongoing teachers. They don't have, by the state recognizer, they don't have tenure, they don't have continuing teacher status, they don't have any status. You can't even consider them after 3 years of being a continuing teacher. So I thought we discussed this.
No.
You have to put them on yearly for approval.
Okay. No, we have not. We have not discussed it, Ms. Breen, but if I need to do, then we can remove them and bring them back.
Well, you don't have to do anything now. We
No.
just say information only now. I mean, and that's
Okay.
all it is information. But those ESI people are not continuing teachers.
Okay.
They have no status at all as like the others, so they have to be approved every year.
Okay.
All right? So just to make sure you're safe on that. So you
Okay.
bring those.
Back to here.
We might have a special meeting here pretty soon, right?
Yes.
You might need one?
Yes, uh-huh.
So you better bring them back because,
Okay.
again, I don't want to be that
As
technical, but I mean, you have to be because they're not ongoing teachers. They're contracted. They don't even belong to the district. Okay? All right, so that was information only, right? Okay. Item N, discussion action on the approval of out-of-state travel for migrant department staff to attend the Migrant Conference Identification and Recruitment Consortium. And Ms. Samaniego?
Yes, so this is a request for out-of-state travel for September 13th and 14th for Ms. Sandra Garcia and Carol Perez to attend the identification and recruitment to be held in Florida.
Mr. Lindeman, can I get a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the out-of-state travel for migrant department staff.
Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ramos. If there's ever a tie like that, you break it, right? In other words, they both said it at the same time. I'm going to let you be the arbitrator.
I concede.
Because I know you laugh at me, you get upset with me. Who spoke first, Mr. Ramos or?
Mr. Ramos.
Mr. Ramos? Because I don't want to slight Mrs. Salchow,
That's okay.
all right? I'm just kidding. Discussion, members,
Mr. Chairman, wasn't there a travel for this in New Mexico not too long ago?
And that was not the migrant conference, but go ahead, Mrs. Herrera. But she's the one that's putting this forth.
What was the question?
If there's a travel to New Mexico not too long ago.
Yeah, right,
I
right.
thought it was the migrant
Board
conference.
President, board members, Mrs. Samaniego, Mr. Soto. This is a different conference. When they were at the conference in New Mexico, our migrant education program grant specialist specifically requested that DUSD attend this conference in Florida because right now we are not identifying any what they call OSY students, which is our out-of-school students or youth who are migrant. And what this conference is going to do is train both Carol and Sandra on how to identify and set up a program for our out-of-school youth who are migrant workers. One of the other things that this conference is going to do is help us reestablish our Saturday tutoring program and our credit recovery specifically for our migrant high school students.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
Are they going to take turns driving, Carol and Sandra?
I think they're gonna fly this time, but speaking of that, they were very glad that they drove because the people who did fly.
Well, she's got that
lost
brand-new truck.
luggage, they lost luggage.
She's got that truck that she's got sole ownership out there. I mean, the only thing that's lacking on there is to put her and Sandra's name on the side.
I don't even drive it.
They're very proprietary with the truck they have out there. They don't let anybody drive it. Me, Mr. Soto, not even the superintendent can drive it. No, I'm just kidding. All right, good explanation. Any further discussion?
I'm just wondering, what was the purpose of the New Mexico trip and what's the benefit of this? To me, if you're going to a migrant conference, isn't it the same? two migrant
No,
conferences?
they are two completely different conferences. The one they went to in New Mexico was the national conference. This one is specifically geared towards identification and recruitment of migrant youth. They're gonna cover different things and train them specifically on how to, when they go out to the farms, how to identify a student or, an individual who may be working on a farm, who did not graduate from high school, and how we can draw them back in and help them get their high school diploma either through GED program or offer them classes here.
So is this an
Go ahead.
adult ed?
It's a
Program?
completely different,
Focus, or
Focus
they're
for this one.
conferences, but they focus on different things.
correct.
It seems a little redundant to me, but I don't know.
Well, you're, I don't, of course, this is your second year in that position, right?
First year.
First year. Well, the board, the reason that all the out-of-state travel is going back to the board, because at one time, and you were here, I think you heard the discussion, the board has been extremely concerned about, and was, regarding all of the out-of-state travel, right? And so you, as that department chair, you have to really, really scrutinize, because those federal programs would afford you a trip at least once every 2 weeks if you take them all. They like to let the people travel, right? So I think Mr. Lindemann's point is, and it's well taken, is that when you look at those applications and you look at those programs, you ensure that there's no duplication and that it's not just, we're going out there and gonna have a good time, right? And
Correct.
we've all been there. I've done it, he's done it. I mean, we've all traveled on public monies before, right? But we wanna make sure now, because of the loss of their presence in the district, is not done, all right? Okay, good. Anything else you wanna add to that? All right. Anything further regarding that? We have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Zara. Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes,
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Breen?
Yes, item O, discussion action on the approval of DHS student athlete meal per diem amounts for state competitions. Let's get a motion on the floor first so we could
I
have.
move
a
to
good
approve
discussion
the
about
meal per diem.
that. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Smith. All right, who's going to discuss that, Mr. Slocum?
Yeah. This is something that we need to do, and it's been a long time. Our current meal per diem amounts are $8 for breakfast, $8 for lunch, and $12 for dinner. And as everybody can attest, I mean, that's not enough money to eat. What we're proposing now is to go to $15 breakfast, $20 lunch, and $25 for dinner. As you will know also, there's a state manual that has per diem, and depending on what city you go or what state you travel to. Just so you have an idea, the meal per diem to travel to Phoenix is $16 breakfast, $17 lunch, and $31 for dinner, for a total of $64. If you go to Tucson, it's $14 breakfast, $16 lunch, and $29 for dinner, a total of $59. So this, what we're proposing, is not exactly that, and again, not knowing where these kids are going to go, or then we're just recommending a total overall of $60 for the whole day, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And this is for state competition games.
Correct, just for state competition games. Mhm.
Why don't you tell the board, just inform us again, you don't pay, the district doesn't pay for any meals when we travel anymore, do we? You don't give them.
For students, no.
Notwithstanding state. But I mean, if, when they fulfill the normal football schedule, they go to Tucson, no meals.
No,
nothing.
correct.
And we don't even give them sandwiches from the cafeteria
No.
anymore, right?
No.
So this is really, this is something that should be done. It should be done all the time, but for whatever the reason, they've done it all over. They don't pay for athletic meals anymore.
Correct.
But in keeping with the state manual on per diem, is this the highest that they give for any travel? Because they even name the city that you go to, how much.
Right, exactly. That's why I gave you those examples. I mean, it varies depending on what to what city you go.
Okay, so, but this is all encompassing, this will cover the
Correct.
highest one?
Yes, not necessarily the highest, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's higher than going to Tucson, but lower than going to Phoenix.
Okay, that's what I
So
mean.
that's what I'm saying. At this point, this is what we can afford. And eventually, maybe once that meal per diem changes again on the state level, then we can address it again.
Okay, great.
fine.
Members of the board, any discussion? Mr. Lindman?
Yeah, thank you. Just so I understand, say the baseball team makes it to go to state competition. So then this would apply for the team.
Correct.
And as well they should, because if they make it there, then they deserve that. They deserve all our support. Or the soccer team, or something like that. Does it also include the playoffs, the semis, all those things, all the way
Correct,
up?
as long as they're in state competition.
State
yes.
competition, okay.
And it also applies to the clubs, right? Like if other students go to state conference, not conference, but competitions like HOSA and skills and,
Right, I was gonna ask that, you know, if we have a spelling bee person that makes it up there, that would apply,
correct.
okay? So it's not just athletics, is what
Correct.
I'm saying, it can be academics,
Mhm.
okay?
So, but for clarification, out of the JTP money, you pay for them, Jose, you mentioned them.
Yes.
They pay.
Yes.
that's
They
not
pay
them.
that,
Yes.
absolutely.
We're talking for state, we're talking for athletic is M&O, so that's what we're approving here, but it carries over into those other programs.
For the other programs,
All right.
correct.
Members of the board, any further discussion regarding that?
I'm just still a
Go ahead.
little unclear, if I may. You brought up the HOSA. Now, if they're going to, what they go to a conference, or FFA goes to a conference, and it's not actually a competition from the state, but it's a competition within there, does that apply then?
Mhm.
It would apply.
It would apply.
I wonder where the fine line is that then, if we say state competition, but yet we're doing it, you know, is that legally clarified?
I guess the way we see it, again, when these kids go to competitions for HOSA, it's state level. I mean, it's not just, they're just gonna go just like
But they go to
like compared to
national.
any
They go to
regular
state and
game.
national. They go to
Yeah.
state and
See,
national.
that's what I'm saying. Well, okay, now, I want to be legal also, and you got the motion here that says state competitions, and if you're gonna pay to go to a national, is that a discrepancy?
That's a good question. Again, we will have to look at what the per diem is for
Well-
going to that state or.
Well, I don't want to jump on top of this, but in the CTE programs, they have, within those programs, they have their own parameters for, however, anything that you do in a federal program, it just because even if it's higher, like per diem on anything, you can't go higher than what that is already acceptable, because the federal programs have money to spend.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, just because they have it, and I can tell you from, it's horrible to use personal experience, but not only here, but when I was in another job up the highway, even there, those federal programs within that department and those people that worked in those programs, they had much more money to spend than the people that were in the state programs in that same department. So you don't exceed just because the money's available for one.
Correct.
But the federal programs do have guidelines as to what you can do with them, like HOSA and in the culinary, all of
All the
those.
CT.
All of
CT.
those things. So Mr. Lindeman's question is pretty accurate. Are you going to impose this on all of them? Or should we bring it back and say that it should be a blanket statement, that if they travel beyond some normal activity, because, and I'll shut up after this, because what HOSA And what's the other one? They
Skills
travel.
USA. and,
They go nationally all the
yes.
time.
So this is what I would recommend. Let's, the recommendation right now as set forth says student athletes that qualify for state competitions, because this is the per diem that's been utilized when a business office has to cut a check for state competitions. So if we can vote on this and make it, just this item so that we don't get confused, and allow me to bring back some information for July, whether this is going to apply in general, and that way we can say state, national, and we have a set amount according to CT guidelines.
Is that all right
too.
with you?
Oh,
Senator?
absolutely. Yeah,
That
because
that cleans it up.
That was my confusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Smith?
No. I have
Oh,
nothing
I'm
else.
sorry, I thought you were gonna say something.
No.
I saw a guy do that one time, bought a horse at an auction, he put it in his hand.
You bought the horse.
I'm just kidding.
But I think
The-
it's cleaner that way.
Yeah, and, but the thing is, that though, Mr. Soto, you're well aware of the state, on the travel manual, right?
The travel
The
manual.
the accounting manual.
Yeah.
And you know what the parameters are in there, so why don't you come back and we'll approve this tonight, is that all right? Will
Yes,
that work?
that's what my
Will that
recommendation
work?
would be.
And then you come back with all the rest of them, just for clarification.
For the other ones.
Do you allow those federal programs, are they still within the same guidelines as the other kids that travel within our budget?
Yes,
Or
they
do
have to.
you-
No, they have to be.
Okay,
They
all
have to
right.
be.
Yeah, of course, that's what
yes.
All right, you have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Mr.
Any further discussion, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
No, I'm just kidding, yes. Item P, discussion action on the approval to renew the dual enrollment intergovernmental agreement between Cochise Community College District and Douglas Unified School District number 27 for the school year 2023-24 school year. Ms. Samaniego. who's got-
So this is the annual agreement for our dual enrollment credits that we've had in place. All the information is there, cost, the classes that will be involved. And so it's been reviewed by our attorney and recommended for approval.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the dual enrollment IGA.
Second,
second.
by Mrs. Salchow. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, here again, I know I've mentioned
Uh-huh.
these things before, for many years, that we should have dual enrollment, and then it was always the teachers were not certified and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
So now these two
There's-
teachers are.
Yes,
And can we expand something like this,
into adding more subjects.
offering more subjects?
Mo-
Absolutely.
We could, and so you run into the issue of the certification and with teachers. And so with the dual enrollment IGA, you can even have college teachers teaching the subject, and that's for a little bit of a different cost. So there is potential, and right now, we are including English 101, 102, Math 151, because our teachers are located and certified to teach at at this level and get dual enrollment credit. So it is a possibility.
I
It's gonna
would
cost
like
us-
to see
yes?
that,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
everything we can get down here in a
Yes.
rural community, I think is beneficial to the students.
I hear many kids graduate from high school and they're going into college at a sophomore level. They've totally taken all of their.
Yes, a lot of our kids that took
quote,
advantage.
Basic courses.
I'm sorry, they're taking all of their what?
Their basic courses.
Oh, basic.
Yeah. Okay.
Any further discussion, members of the board?
Even this-
Administration, anything you want to add to that?
No, and we will definitely look into what else we can do with potentially the students taking courses over there for dual enrollment with, their teachers. And that's the problem, that we don't have the teachers here with that certification in order for them to get that credit. So, we'll look.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes, item Q, discussion action on the approval of renewal agreement between the Stepping Stones group and Douglas Unified School District number 27. Who's going to do that? You?
Sure. So this is submitted by Mrs. Walker. This is obviously our related service providers, and this is the agreement that we have with them to provide these added staffing that we are not able to hire on ourselves. So the agreement has been reviewed, and it's just a renewal.
Okay, get a motion so we can have some discussion.
I move to approve the renewal
Is
agreement.
there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Selchow. Any discussion, members of the board? I have a couple. Katie, you're the one that handled this, right? In the part, the first question is, in the part where it said, and I'm always concerned about these kinds of things in these contracts, and when you negotiate these, and I've talked to Mr. Soto about other ones, where, and I don't know where it is in there, but I know I read it when I was reading the contract, that it said, in-district expenses, travel expenses when applicable. It says something like that, but that's basically the language. So, and it says from site to site. So when you negotiate this with Stepping Stone and you send it to our attorney, is the eventuality of us ever paying them, if, let's say they're at, say they're from one elementary to another, do you pay them per diem for that?
So we haven't been billed, this is a new contract with them, and that's why we ran it through the attorney, because it was the first time I had ever noticed that as well, so, but when we went out for different quotes, this company ended up being the lowest cost per hour, and actually had the staff available, some staff available that actually worked in Douglas and could see kids in person rather than virtual. So honestly, the two psychologists there will be providing won't have any travel because they're virtual. Our speech language pathologists will all be virtual. So the only staff that could potentially bill per diem is our OT staff. That's the only people that we really provide in person through the Stepping Stones company.
So you don't think there's going to be any vouchers or any claims made for travel in district by any of them? Is Lisa Holland part of this? And I'll tell you, from as long as I hate to say it, contracts, you can put anything in them, as long as both parties agree, right? And to me, if we accept that, and of course, the attorney looked at it, right?
Yes.
But if we adopt this way, then we're agreeing to, and that's why you always got to look at the fine print, that if one goes from Stevenson and then they drive to Ferris and they drive back, they can be charging the district over and above the total amount of the contract for those travel expenses, if we agree to it. So what are the timelines on this? Do you need this approved tonight?
Well, we would like to place staff. They are already searching. I've already sat in interviews, not with agreement. We're not the ones hiring on, but I have been able to sit in on interviews to see what staff's available, especially in the psychology. Those are the ones. Most of the other staff is returning staff from SSG. But the sooner we have this in place, the sooner that we know we have related service providers. The contract was reviewed by Jessica. There was other language in there, such as a non-compete clause, I think, that's what it was called, right? That we had removed, stating that the district, would be responsible for enforcing, if somehow the district were to employ them later on in the future, that we would, be subject to charges and stuff. So Jessica did review it, and did scratch out a lot of the language, that she was not agreeable to, so it was reviewed by our attorney. But yes, a lot of providers come from the Tucson area, Phoenix area, so yes, at times there could be some traveling, but they really don't travel a whole lot with Douglas.
So out of the ones that we're going to need, only one would be the OT?
So our OT staff, which is currently an occupational therapist and 3 occupational therapist assistants. 2 of them reside in Douglas and 1 resides in the Tucson area. We're trying to work it out that when this agreement is signed, I'm trying to get it down to just the 2 that actually reside in Douglas.
My concern with these contracts always is that if you don't finalize it, it's all inclusive, and then you have added expenses, and they come back with, it's like an open purchase order, where they can come back and make all these claims, so you're not really, the contract, total amount of the contract is one thing, but if you leave that open clause in there, then they can come back and it can charge the district whatever for all those other things. I'm not gonna make a big issue out of that, but I just wanna make sure that we read that fine print well, because another thing is a lot of times they'll charge you to and from their homes, and we had an issue with that at one time.
Well, this
So-
one does say travel between schools will be considered billable time and mileage, so it has to be between the school sites. And then the other
Right.
thing that Katie will assure to oversee is that no travel will be billed when work is completed at one site. And so if they're just staying at one site,
So, we look at scheduling, their schedules come to me, we make sure, try to make sure that they're at one site for the day. The biggest thing is the time, it's that, like, if they're at Stevenson in the morning, and then at 10 a.m. they need to switch to another school, it's that they're not off the clock, that's considered time on the clock, and they, they're not swiping in and out per se.
Okay, you guys will look into that, right? Realistically, it's only a technicality with me, but realistically, how far can they go? I mean, they can go from Carlson to Purtleville. But it's still something that if somebody goes back and forth, they're gonna be submitting these claims, and we're agreeing to it, because it says when applicable. Well, who's gonna determine when it's applicable? All right, members of the board, go ahead, Mr. Lynn.
That brings up a good point. Are they going to be paid by the hour?
Yes,
And
so
then if they travel across town, that's mileage?
They're considered on the clock, and then, yes,
Right.
potentially.
But that'll be on the clock, that'd be fine, but they're not going to bill out mileage too, are they?
Yes,
Gas,
so-
the gas.
Yeah, that's
We're
all.
not
yeah, that's what we're
providing-
talking.
That's the whole thing, per diem.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing is,
My concern is they get lost.
And add the miles.
But it is foreseeable that, let's say that they start their schedule at Stevenson, and we have a driver that could transport them from Stevenson to Ferris, or Ferris to Joe Carlson, and then we would not have to pay their per diem. Is that correct?
Well, we don't have drivers,
I know.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
well, the bottom line is that it's probably negligible, to be honest with you, in the scheme of everything. But the point is that when we do these contracts, and I know I talked to Caesar a lot about it, you have to be very, very careful what you agree to in there. And once the contract is consummated with the board and we approve it, that should be the end of it. Then the contract dictates. There isn't any extraneous activity with submitting travel vouchers and mileage vouchers and those kinds of things that the district has to pay. It could even be outlandish, they might go beyond Purtleville. I'm just kidding. All right. I'm just kidding. Okay, so if we approve this tonight, you feel comfortable with it, with all of the contents of it? Okay, do you?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Anything you want to add, Katie?
No, I mean, our goal is to always hire our in-person staff. Unfortunately, we're not able to, and so it's not my ideal at all to have virtual services, but unfortunately, that's the nature, especially after COVID. A lot of therapists did not go back to in-person services.
Yeah, well, and of course, we're kind of at their mercy anyway. We don't have that kind of stuff available. All right, anything you want to add?
No.
You want, anything, administration, anything you want to add? Alma, anything you want to add?
Yes, sir.
You want the vote? Go ahead.
Please.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Breen?
Yes. Item 4, information items, Ms. Samaniego.
We have a special board meeting on June 27th, and it'll be at 11 a.m. I know we're still in June, but July 4th is Independence Day. All offices will be closed. And our next regular board meeting will be July 5th with the public hearing and budget adoption for a new school year.
At 2.
Okay,
At 2 p.m., I'm sorry. Yeah, the regular meeting will be at 2, and then at 2:30 is a hearing.
Okay, so then we have item 5, executive session. The governing board may vote into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, subsection A, number 1, for the following personnel matter. Superintendent performance pay set out pursuant to ARS 15-341, subsection A, number 39. Entertain a motion to do that.
I moved to enter into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Brewing?
Okay, we're going to go into executive session, but Ms. Snyder, I'd like a word with you. All right? No, I'm a former Spanish teacher. That's the only reason. I gossip a little bit with you. All right? I'm going to take about a 5-minute break before we do that, okay?
No.
Okay.
Are you ready, Peter? Okay.
We're back in open session. Item 6A, discussion action to approve 5% payment for the superintendent's performance pay as stated on the contract pursuant to ARS 15-341 subsection A 39. I'll entertain a motion to do that.
I move to approve the 5% payment of the superintendent's performance pay as stated on the contract.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcho?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
By- Who got it, Alma?
Ms. Salcho?
All right, I'm calling.
Jana got it this time.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I says I'm hungry.
I'm so stiff.